We haven't even started hitting them hard. The big wave hasn't even happened. The big one is coming soon. That wasn't Pentagon spin or cautious diplomatic messaging. That was Donald Trump this morning on CNN declaring that everything witnessed over 57 hours, over 1,000 targets struck, 49 Iranian leaders eliminated, Supreme Leader Khamenei confirmed dead, Iran's navy crippled. All of that is just the opening act. The big wave is still coming. While Trump's promising escalation, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte praises the strikes but insists the alliance won't participate. Turkey's Erdogan condemns attacks as violation of international law and sides with Iran. Oil hit $80 per barrel. Qatar shot down 2 Iranian jets. Iran's leadership structure is in chaos with nobody knowing who's running the country. This isn't stabilizing. This is accelerating towards something nobody can control. 49 leaders eliminated in one strike, not soldiers. Senior Iranian officials who run a nation of 88 million people. They got a little bit arrogant, Trump told CNN. They thought they were undetectable. They weren't. Israel tracked Iran's entire leadership to a single compound in Thran. Died. So did 48 others who were supposed to manage succession. They don't even know who's leading them now. Trump said, "We don't know who they'll pick. Maybe they'll get lucky and get someone who knows what they're doing." Iran has a 3-person emergency council governing until clerics select a new supreme leader. But the clerics who guide that process are dead. The succession structure just got eliminated. That's not victory. That's strategic chaos in a nuclear threshold state with ballistic missiles and control over 30% of global oil choke points. Trump's 9-minute CNN interview revealed the war's trajectory better than 3 days of carefully scripted Pentagon briefings. On timeline, I don't want to see it go on too long. I always thought 4 weeks. We're ahead of schedule. Day 3 of a planned month-long campaign. Minimum 25 more days of combat operations on objectives preventing Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons and eliminating ballistic missile capability. But the IAEA confirmed Iran's nuclear sites remain largely intact. Neaton suffered peripheral damage, but core centrifuge operations are functional. Trump claims Fordo enrichment facilities mountain basically collapsed. Zero independent verification from IAEA or satellite imagery. So if the primary goal is stopping nuclear weapons and facilities remain operational, what's been accomplished on negotiations? We couldn't make a deal with these people. Trump's team tried diplomacy. Iran responded with counteroffers. But according to Trump, Iran walked back commitments and refused to end uranium enrichment entirely. U.S. demanded complete cessation. Iran wanted limits, but not elimination. Talks collapsed. So it's going good, Trump said. Translation: diplomacy failed because Iran wouldn't dismantle its nuclear infrastructure voluntarily. So the United States decided to dismantle it by force. Except they haven't actually dismantled it yet on the big wave still coming. Trump explicitly stated the hardest strikes have not happened yet. We're knocking the crap out of them, but we haven't even started hitting them hard. What we've witnessed: systematic destruction of Iran's navy, missile production facilities, 49 leaders dead. That's phase 1, designed to degrade conventional defenses and eliminate command structure. Phase 2 is coming, likely targets underground nuclear infrastructure with bunker-buster munitions. GBU-57, massive ordnance penetrators, 30,000 lb bombs dropped from B-2 stealth bombers capable of punching through 200 ft of reinforced concrete. Targets: Parton Military Complex, Iraq Reactor, every remaining underground facility. Problem: these facilities sit near populated areas. Fordo is near Qom, a city of over 1 million. Phase 2 creates exponentially higher civilian casualty risks. Here's where the calculus in Washington changed completely. Trump told CNN the biggest surprise was Iran attacking Arab countries. Bahrain, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, UAE. We were surprised, Trump admitted. We told them we've got this, and now they want to fight. They were going to be very little involved, and now they insist on being involved. Translation: U.S. assured Gulf states American missile defense would protect them. Gulf leaders believed it. Then Iranian missiles hit Dubai hotels, Doha apartment buildings, civilian infrastructure. They shot into a hotel. They shot into an apartment house. It just made them angry. Trump said Qatar shot down 2 Iranian Su-24 bombers Monday. First confirmed air-to-air kills this conflict. That's Gulf states actively entering combat because Washington's protection proved inadequate. UAE activated full air defense networks. Bahrain requested additional Patriot batteries. Kuwait, where 3 US F-15E were shot down by Kuwaiti air defenses and friendly fire, demands better coordination. Trump's reaction: I know these people. They're tough and smart. But here's what he's not saying. Every Gulf state hit by Iranian missiles might reconsider hosting tens of thousands of American troops. If U.S. presence makes you a target and missile defense can't stop everything, why keep the relationship? After 9/11, Saudi Arabia quietly asked the U.S. to remove forces because American presence became a political liability. Washington complied, shifting operations to Qatar and other Gulf states. Now, those countries are learning the same lesson. Hosting American forces during U.S. wars of choice gets you attacked. Trump claims shock that Iran would strike countries hosting forces bombing Iranian territory. What did he expect? War planning didn't account for aggressive Iranian retaliation against allies. That's strategic failure masquerading as surprise. But that is only half the story. NATO Secretary General Rutte praised the operation this morning, called it really important for degrading Iran's nuclear and missile capability, critical for Israel's survival and European security. Then he added, there are absolutely no plans whatever for NATO to get dragged into this or being part of it other than individual allies doing what they can. NATO, the 75-year-old alliance binding US and Europe, will not participate. Individual countries might provide logistics or intelligence, but NATO as an institution sits this out unprecedented. Afghanistan, NATO invoked Article 5. Libya, NATO coordinated operations. Syria, NATO members coordinated responses. Iran, NATO refuses. This signals Europe views Operation Epic Fury as an American war of choice, not defense of necessity. Roa praises rhetorically, but refusal to commit forces speaks louder. If casualties spike, if conflict expands, Europe has plausible deniability. We supported objectives, but you chose this operation. Spain explicitly denied U.S. permission to use American bases on Spanish soil for Iran operations. NATO ally blocking support during active combat. Turkish President Erdogan issued direct condemnation Monday. We are deeply saddened by attacks by the United States and Israel, which began due to Netanyahu's provocations against our neighbor Iran. Strikes violate Iran's sovereignty and threaten the peace of the friendly and brotherly Iranian people. Friendly and brotherly, that's solidarity, not neutrality. That's a NATO member publicly siding with Iran against the United States during active combat. Erdogan also condemned Iran's strikes on Gulf countries, positioning Turkey as neutral mediator. But there's cold calculation. Turkey shares a 500-kilometer border with Iran. A destabilized Iran creates refugee flows and security threats. But Erdogan actively prefers Iran's Islamist regime survives, even weakened. Why? A collapsed Iran means civil war or potentially a pro-Western? Democratic government aligned with American interests. A weakened Islamic Republic Turkey can work with. That's manageable. Erdogan's been silent about Iran's brutal protester crackdowns. In January, he congratulated Iranian President Pezeshkian for handling protests, now expressing condolences for Commune's death and condemning American strikes. This isn't neutrality. This is Turkey opposing American efforts to destroy Iran's regime. France, Germany, UK also distanced themselves from strikes. Message from allies. This is your war, not ours. What happened next changes everything. Trump revealed nobody knows who's leading Iran. We don't know who the leadership is. They don't even know who's leading them now. 49 officials dead, supreme leader killed, succession structure obliterated. Iran operates under emergency three-person council, but clerics who guide supreme leader selection are dead. Here's why that's terrifying. Iran is a nuclear threshold state with ballistic missiles, proxy forces across 4 countries, and control over Strait of Hormuz, carrying 30% of global seaborne oil. Who's deciding retaliation strategy? Who's coordinating with Hezbollah, Iraqi militias? Who has authority to close Hormuz or launch missiles? Iran fired missiles at Tel Aviv, Dubai, Doha, multiple U.S. bases. Were those centrally coordinated or independent Revolutionary Guard commanders acting without orders? No clear leader means no escalation control. Competing factions make independent decisions. That's how conflicts spiral unpredictably. Trump thinks leadership chaos weakens Iran. Strategists know leadership vacuums make conflicts exponentially more dangerous. Nobody can negotiate or de-escalate. Oil hit $80 per barrel Monday, up from $70 before strikes. 14% spike in 72 hours. Analysts warn 100 plus if conflict continues or Hormuz faces disruption. Strait of Hormuz handles 21 million barrels daily, 30% of global seaborne oil. Iran controls the northern side. Close it temporarily and global markets face catastrophic shortage. Insurance costs tripled. Ships rerouting around Africa. Qatar Energy suspended LG production at Rosalofen, one of world's largest plants. Europe depends on Qatari gas. Fed was preparing rate cuts. Now inflation risks spike. Europe's struggling economy faces worse impacts. Trump didn't rule out ground troops. Asked if he'd send forces if necessary. Trump said he's not ruling it out. Ground invasion would require hundreds of thousands of troops. Sustained operations over years. Casualties dwarfing Iraq and Afghanistan. Iran has 88 million people, mountainous terrain, battle-hardened Revolutionary Guard. Nobody thinks it's viable, but Trump's keeping it on the table. Middle ground, special operations raids. We've seen that with K&A assassination. Expand targeted raids on nuclear facilities, leadership compounds. More sustainable than invasion, but riskier than airstrikes. 1214. What Trump isn't saying 9 minutes on CNN. Trump talked leadership chaos, Gulf surprises, big wave coming. Here's what he didn't address. How does this end? Trump says 4 weeks, maybe ahead of schedule. But 4 weeks accomplish what specific outcome? Iran's interim government accepts American terms. New supreme leader emerges who agrees to dismantle nuclear program voluntarily. Regime collapses and democracy flourishes. None of those scenarios have basis in reality. Iran's interim government already declared through official channels they will not negotiate with the United States under any circumstances. When a new supreme leader is selected, it will be from the hardline clerical establishment. They're not selecting a reformer who wants rapprochement with Washington. The Iranian population hates the regime. Months of protests prove that. But historical patterns show populations rally around governments they despise when foreign powers attack. External military intervention doesn't trigger democratic revolution. It triggers nationalism. So if war lasts 4 weeks and ends, what changes? Iran's government might be weaker, but still exists. Nuclear program might be damaged, but unless every facility is destroyed, it can rebuild. Regional proxies, Hezbollah, Iraqi militias, Houthis still operate. Trump hasn't explained the end state beyond vague goals of eliminating capabilities. Nuclear facilities still operational. Trump claims Fordos basically collapsed and enrichment can't continue. IAEA actual experts monitoring these facilities says Iranian nuclear sites remain largely operational. Natanz has peripheral damage, but core centrifuge cascades function. Fordo shows structural issues, but no confirmed destruction of enrichment equipment. If the primary justification is preventing nuclear weapons and infrastructure remains substantially intact after 57 hours of intensive strikes, what exactly has been accomplished toward that goal? Trump's answer, don't worry, big wave coming. We'll destroy them in phase 2. But he said phase 1 was going very well and very powerful. If phase 1 couldn't eliminate nuclear facilities, why believe phase 2 will succeed? Civilian casualties dismissed. Trump mentioned 49 leaders as amazing strike and victory. What about estimated 1,000 plus Iranians killed? Civilians dead in schools, hospitals. Iranian Red Crescent reported over 550 casualties in first 48 hours. An Iranian school in Min allegedly took direct hit, killing 158 students. Iran claims deliberate targeting. U.S. says investigating whether facility was used for military purposes. Regardless, those are dead children. Trump's response to civilian casualties. They weren't willing to give us what we asked for in negotiations. That's not moral reckoning. That's justifying dead civilians because diplomatic talks failed. Pentagon admitted no imminent threat. Multiple sources confirmed Pentagon briefers told congressional staff in classified session that Iran was not planning to strike U.S. forces, unless attacked first. Tran would only retaliate if Israel attacked. That directly contradicts administration's public claim of imminent threat requiring preventive action. If Iran wasn't planning to strike unless attacked, these strikes weren't defensive. They were preemptive aggression to prevent theoretical future threat. Trump's response, he listed every Iranian attack on American interests over 47 years. You go back 37 years. Really, 47 years. Look at what's happened and all the death. If I told you all of them, I'd still be talking. That's arguing for revenge for decades of actions, not addressing immediate justification of imminent threat. Alliance collapse ignored. Trump praised Gulf states for being tough and smart after they started shooting down Iranian aircraft. Didn't mention NATO refuses to participate. Spain blocked bases. Turkey sided with Iran, France, Germany, UK distanced themselves. United States is conducting major regional military operation with only Israel providing direct combat support and Gulf states fighting defensively after getting attacked. That's not coalition warfare. That's America isolated on strategic choice. Its closest allies think is wrong. Trump promised the big wave is coming multiple times emphatically. We haven't even started hitting them hard? The big one is coming soon. What does that actually mean? Based on what phase 1 targeted and what remains untouched, military analysts can construct educated assessments. Phase 1 focused on degrading conventional military and eliminating command structure. Naval vessels destroyed, air defense systems damaged, missile production facilities hit, Revolutionary Guard bases struck, and the decapitation strike that killed 49 leaders. Phase 2 almost certainly targets hardened underground facilities. Phase 1 couldn't adequately damage that means bunker buster operations using weapons designed to penetrate hundreds of feet of reinforced concrete. Primary weapon, GBU-57. A massive ordnance penetrator 30,000 LLB bomb only B-2 stealth bombers can carry, designed to punch through 200 feet of reinforced concrete or 60 FT of rock. U.S. has never used this weapon in combat developed specifically for Iran and North Korea's underground facilities. Target list likely includes Fordo enrichment facility near Qom built inside mountain to survive conventional bunker busters. Parchin military complex where Iran conducts nuclear weapons research. Underground command bunkers where interim leadership might operate. Deep storage facilities for ballistic missiles and nuclear materials. Underground Revolutionary Guard bases inaccessible to Phase 1 strikes. Problem: these facilities sit near or within populated areas. Fordo is close to Qom, a city of over 1 million and holy site for Shia Muslims. Partin is near Thran suburbs. Even precision strikes on underground facilities create massive above-ground explosions and seismic effects impacting surrounding civilian populations. Phase 1 largely avoided densely populated urban centers, hit military bases, naval facilities, government compounds. Civilian casualties occurred, but weren't primary result of targeting decisions. Phase 2, bunker-buster operations near cities create exponentially higher risks of mass civilian casualties. A 30,000 lb bomb detonating underground doesn't just destroy the target. It creates surface cratering, building collapses from seismic shock waves, infrastructure destruction across wide radius. That's why Trump's promise of big wave harder than anything seen is genuinely alarming. He's signaling qualitative escalation and destructive capacity and acceptable collateral damage. But operational challenge isn't the only concern. Strategic escalation follows. If big wave includes strikes on targets in Syria or Lebanon, you're fighting across multiple countries simultaneously. Israel is already striking Lebanon against Hezbollah. If U.S. forces start hitting Iranian-backed positions in Syria, you risk an inadvertent engagement with Russian forces also operating there. What if bunker buster strike intended for Iranian facility hits close to Russian installation? What if Russian air defense interprets incoming American stealth bombers as threats and engages? Putin made clear Russia won't defend Iran, but accidental escalation doesn't require intentional decisions. Similarly, in Iraq, Iranian-backed militias operate extensively across Iraqi territory. If Phase 2 targets Iranian command embedded with Iraqi militia groups, you're conducting strikes inside third country against targets intermingled with Iraqi government forces. Iraqi government barely tolerates American military presence and has repeatedly demanded withdrawal. Expanded strikes on Iraqi soil could trigger political crisis, forcing U.S. evacuation entirely. And then there's Strait of Hormuz calculation. Iran hasn't attempted closure yet. Phase 1 damaged Iranian naval capabilities, making closure harder. But if Phase 2 hits interim government hard enough, if bunker busters kill more officials, if Revolutionary Guard faces total collapse, desperate play becomes closing Hormuz as final retaliation, mining the strait, sinking vessels in choke points, launching anti-H-ship missiles at commercial tankers. Iran has multiple options, even with degraded capabilities. Once Hormuz is closed or seriously threatened, oil doesn't gradually climb to $100. It spikes to $150, $200, potentially higher. That triggers global economic crisis overnight. Europe faces energy catastrophe. Asian economies dependent on Gulf oil face industrial shutdowns. U.S. economy faces inflation spike. Stock markets crash. Recession risks escalate dramatically. Trump believes Iran will capitulate before reaching that desperation point. Problem: Iran's shown no indication of capitulating. They're retaliating against every escalation. Every Trump promise of harder strikes makes Iranian hardliners more convinced they're fighting for survival, making desperate moves more likely. At some point, somebody miscalculates. Air defense operator shoots down commercial airliner by mistake. Iranian missile overshoots military target and hits major civilian center. U.S. strike intended for weapons depot hits hospital. Gulf state gets overwhelmed and formally requests NATO Article 5, potentially dragging all Europe into direct combat. Any of those scenarios, which become exponentially more probable as operations intensify, transforms regional conflict into approaching global crisis. Trump's interview made absolutely clear. He's not thinking about off-ramps, de-escalation, or diplomatic exits. He's thinking about how hard to hit Iran, how comprehensively to destroy capabilities, how decisively to demonstrate American power. Trump told CNN, "We're knocking the crap out of them. I think it's going very well." 49 leaders dead, common killed, warship sunk, oil spiking 14%, NATO refusing to join, Turkey siding with Iran, leadership chaos, Gulf states shooting down Iranian jets, economic shockwaves spreading. That's not going very well. That's uncontrolled spiral. Iran's nuclear program remains operational. Interim government won't negotiate. NATO refuses forces. Turkey condemned as illegal. Gulf states question U.S. protection. Oil prices spike. Leadership of vacuum prevents escalation control. Hezbollah opens second front, and Trump promises the big wave is still coming. NATO backs rhetorically but refuses forces. That tells you what allies believe. Erdogan sides with Iran. That tells you regional powers thinking. Gulf states defend themselves after U.S. assurances failed. 57 hours ago, surgical strike to prevent nuclear weapons. Today, it's month-long campaign with Phase 2 promised. No defined victory. Adversary refusing negotiation. Allies refusing participation. President promising hardest hits ahead. Trump wanted to demonstrate strength. He's showing military force without strategic wisdom creates chaos. The big wave is coming, but waves ripple outward. They hit shores you didn't expect. Once you set them in motion, you can't call them back. And that confidence, that certainty, overwhelming force produces desired outcomes is precisely what makes the next 25 days more dangerous than the first 57.